What's good, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. This is going to be, I believe, episode 17 on my channel finally. I'm getting closer to 20, and I'm pretty excited about that. My goal, actually, from this point on, if everything works out, I'm trying to do 1 to 2 podcasts a week on this channel, along with my other narrations and other movie reviews. But I want to do 1 to 2 podcasts every single week. And so every week I'm going to be doing some new movie reviews for some horror movies. So stick with this. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. I got my good buddy Mike here, and he is also a fellow mailman. Tell me, man, how you doing through all this coronavirus stuff at work?
People are nicer to us now. Customers are even nicer than normal. I got a whole box of granola bars from a customer today. So, other than the fact that, you could get sick and die, it's all right.
Yeah, it's not bad, man. At least you and I are still working. We're still getting a paycheck, so I know there's a lot of people who are suffering out there. So I'm glad that you and I still don't really have to worry about that. So we did this thing where last episode, him and I reviewed The Witch from 2015. And we said when we decided to podcast together, actually, Mike came up with this idea. He said, how about I pick a movie and you pick a movie? We do 2 different episodes. So we just did his episode, which was The Witch. Now we're doing my pick, which is Misery from 1990. And if you haven't seen this movie that came out a long time ago, you should go watch it, first of all. But if you haven't seen it, don't worry. The beginning of this podcast is going to be spoiler free, just like every podcast I'm going to do this. And then we're going to get very spoiler heavy coming on. So 1990, I know, Mike, you and I are about 10 years apart age wise. So you're 40 and I'm 30. So I'm a little jealous that you got to enjoy some of the movies in theaters that I have to enjoy basically from my living room. So let me ask you, did you see Misery in the theaters?
Oh, no, definitely not. I would have only been 10 years old, dude. I didn't know what Misery was at the time. It was not on my radar at all. I think I heard about it. I remember hearing about it when it came out, but had no idea what it was, didn't know what it was about. Just knew there was a guy in a bed. There was a woman. That's about it.
Well, that is all about it, pretty much. That's like the premises of this movie, is that is it. I know you would have been 10, but I saw Scream when I was like 7. So, people see horror movies when they're 10 years old or less, man. Misery. So the first time you saw this, how old do you think you were?
I was in my 20s, probably early 20s when I first saw it. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Late teens.
Did you read the book before you saw the movie?
No, I read the book much later. But first just saw the movie straight, late teens, probably early 20s. So.
What did you think of the movie compared to the book now that you've read the book?
They're very similar in ways, but there's quite a bit of differences too. Like the overall story is the same. But I think the movie it's a really good adaptation of the book. They had to take some stuff out, but what they, chose to keep in and some of the changes they made, I thought were really good.
Oh, that's good.
Of the two, I'm not sure which I prefer, the book or the movie. It's pretty close. Like the movies, I might pick the movie just because, I don't know. Like I said, some of the changes I actually enjoyed. So.
Oh, that's good. You don't really talk to many people who have seen the movie and read the book, unless you're talking to somebody about Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Usually they don't read too many books, but I know you're a big fan of reading books, which is pretty cool. I've always wanted to kind of go back and read some Stephen King's books, but I've always heard that they're also super duper weird, and you could tell he was doing a lot of coke when he was writing it, so he rambles on about a lot of stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you could say that, but for me, his crazy ramblings are pretty awesome. So I'm down with when it gets really nutty, I'm cool with that. So, but Misery, the book is pretty straightforward. It's not one of his crazy ones. So.
Okay. No teenage orgies.
No, nothing like that in that one.
Okay, not in that one. Okay, good. Yeah. All right, so again, this is spoiler free for a while. Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie at 90%, and I agree. IMDb gave it a 7.8 out of 10. That's a little low to me. I think it should be higher than that, in my opinion. And this movie had a budget of $20 million. 20 mil to make this movie. When we did the Witch review, that had a budget of 4 million. And I was even asking, like, where did the budget go to that movie? Like, there's not much to it. This movie, $20 million for a budget? Why? What's $20 million worth in this?
Well, I know with the budget, it's usually included how much, the actors are paid as well. So I'm assuming James Caan was a little pricey. He was a well-known actor. Kathy Bates was pretty new at the time, so I don't think she would have been too much. But yeah, I mean, unless they built the whole house from scratch, like designed it as a set, if it was something that was already existing, I'm not sure why it would cost quite that much. But
I think it made a little over 60 million, like 61 million though in the box office. So that's a pretty big return. I mean, even if you make $1 million over, like that's still $1 million, So to make 41 mil, that's pretty legit. Yeah. This was directed by Rob Reiner. I went into his directorials page on IMDb to see what kind of things he directed, and he did A Few Good Men, When Harry Met Sally, The Princess Bride, and Stand By Me. So this guy definitely has that old school catalog that you guys are all probably familiar with. One movie I've never seen is The Princess Bride.
Yeah, it's good, dude.
Is it as good as everyone makes it sound?
I'm not a huge fan of it. I was one of those people that always raves about it, but it's definitely good and worth watching for sure. Like you're not going to be disappointed,
Okay, I have honestly zero idea what it's about. I have no idea what it's about. So I don't know spoilers. I don't know characters. I don't know anything. So I probably would enjoy it, not having anything ruined. I know that movie came out a long time ago. All right, so the plot of Misery from 1990 goes like this. After a famous author is rescued from a car crash by a fan of his novels, he comes to realize that the care he is receiving is only the beginning of a nightmare of captivity and abuse. Yes, it is. This movie stars James Caan as Paul Sheldon, the author, Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes, Richard Farnsworth as Buster, the sheriff, and Frances Sternhagen as Virginia, his wife, or when they're on duty, the deputy. Okay, my man. Let's get into our ratings of this movie. I'm going to go first, and I want to know if you agree or disagree with my rating and why. So how the rating system works on this podcast, it's 1 through 10. 1 is going to be the worst movie you've pretty much ever seen. How did it ever get made? 5 is going to be completely average, right down the middle. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just a movie. And then 10 is this movie was sick. This was like one of my favorite movies. It's so good, blah, blah, blah. It's nearly perfect. So for me, 1 through 10, Misery from 1990, it's going to get a 10 out of 10. I think the acting is great. I think the effects, the makeup is fantastic. The dialogue is well thought out, well acted, and the story is awesome. Those are like my 4 main reasons why I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. For me, I tried to think of things I didn't like about it, and I really could not think of one thing I didn't like about this movie. The minute it starts to the minute it ends, I love this. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about my score of 10 out of 10, and what would you rate it?
Yeah, I mean, 10 out of 10, I understand. I was going to give it a 9. Again, another 9. But yeah, it's a really good movie. So a 10, I understand. I could maybe be talked into a 10, but 9 I think is a really good score. So 9 and 10, not too shabby.
Oh, that's a great score, but I want to know, spoiler free wise, like, what do you think of this movie? Like, what gives it a 9 out of 10?
Just, I mean, Kathy Bates' character, Annie, she's a large part of the reason why the movie works, I think. Like, her performance is great, and then, James Caan is great too, and you really sympathize with him. You feel, his frustration, his pain, everything he's going through from the moment he wakes up in the bed to, the end of the movie. You want him to succeed, like, the whole time. You're just like, come on, man, you can do this. With her, the tension going back and forth, it's just really good. And there's some funny moments to it. There's some horrific moments, and yeah, it's just like I said, a really good adaptation of the book. So
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that, and I totally agree with what you're saying with all that stuff. This is a great movie through and through. If you haven't seen it, you never got around to it. I got it for my birthday, late December this year, or this last year, I guess, 2019. I got it on Blu-ray, and I've been wanting it so for forever. I have it on DVD, but I want that quality. So my wife got it for me for my birthday. She had never seen it. And I was like, what? So guess what we did that night? We watched this movie. And when it was over, she said, it was a good movie. I think you kind of talked it up a little too much, though. That's what she said. Because I told her it's like so good. It's one of like my favorite movies and stuff. And I think I kind of like I left the shoe print a little too large for her feet to fill. And so that's my mistake. So I don't want to do that. If you haven't seen this movie, I'm going to let you know it's an older movie. Obviously, it came out in the 90s, early 90s. So it's a little dated. It is. But it's still really good. The acting is good. The intensity is good. Like Mike, like you were saying, you care so much for James Caan that you want every move that he makes to be a beneficial move. You don't want anything to set him back. And there are definitely things in this movie that set him back. And they're big things that we're going to get real into during spoiler talk. But this movie is it's a classic. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest going out, buying it, because you're going to want to own it. I promise you're going to like it. Mike, I want to know, dude, would you suggest this movie to people who haven't seen it?
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as long as they like, intense thriller kind of movies, for sure. If they haven't seen it, absolutely, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I would too. Would you say that this movie is intense, though? Do you think moments of it are intense? Because it's definitely not really like a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd say it's intense just because, like I said, you feel his frustration being in that bed, wanting to exit, and the whole time you know that there could be danger from this lady. There could be, who knows what, she's very unstable. So, the whole time you just want him to leave. So for me, that's tense. Maybe
Yeah.
not like sustained the entire time, but from the moment he's in there, you want him out. So
Well,
there's
I was just
some
playing.
sort of release station.
I was just playing devil's advocate because I totally agree. I think the whole time it's
Oh,
intense too. Like I definitely
okay,
wasn't
yeah,
questioning that at all. I was just
yeah.
saying, do
Okay,
you think it's intense? Like, would you call it intense?
yeah.
Because I would. Especially there's
Mm,
specific moments where your main character is in some sort of like peril and he needs to get out, and basically he's fighting time and he's fighting the situation. And you know exactly what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. And that whole
mm,
sequence of what we're talking about is so just nail biting, leaving you on the edge of your seat, not knowing what's going to happen. So good, dude. I love it so much. It's one of those older movies that you can watch at any time of the day, any time of the year, and it's just going to be a great watch. So yeah, we would suggest
mm.
that you definitely go see this. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds here to turn off the podcast if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled. So turn it off because in 5 seconds, spoiler talk. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, heavy spoiler time. So if you want to listen to this part of the podcast and you've never seen the movie, I wish you wouldn't because it's a good one that I don't want to spoil too much. All right, so Mike, your favorite
Mm.
and your least favorite character. So who's your favorite character of this movie?
I mean, it might be what, Buster, the cop. That's
The sheriff.
coming. Yeah, he's always enjoyable. He's always got some little quip to say, and he's really likable. And you kind of feel bad at the end. What happens, but yeah, I probably like him the most. I mean, sure, James Caan too, but I'm more sympathetic to him versus just like him. He might be a jerk for all I know, but Buster, like I like Buster.
Yeah,
Which Buster
dude.
is not in the book, by the way.
Oh, he's an added character for the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm
Mm,
curious then. Like, I mean, obviously, I don't want this to be like book movie comparison podcast, but like, I definitely want
right.
to know like stuff like that. So Buster's not in the book.
Okay.
So then, is any sort of sheriff involved in the book?
Yeah, there is, but it's not. It's very minor. Like there's cops and sheriff and all that. They show up at the end. When everything goes down. but it doesn't go back and forth between like, you know, Annie and Paul, and then go back to the cop looking, you know, finding clues, and then go back to them. It's pretty much all with, you know, Paul the whole time, like at the house. And from what it's been, you know, a few years since I read it, but what I remember, that cops do show up, but not till like towards the end.
Oh, okay. So is there that scene when Buster gets shot by Annie when he finds Paul in the basement? Is that in the book at all?
Yeah, she does shoot. I know I think she shoots a cop. I know she kills a cop, or at least a couple cops. And I know one of them she kills by riding over him with a riding lawnmower.
Oh, wow.
Like he's outside and just rides over him, you know.
Jeez.
But I don't know. I don't think it happens, you know, with the way Buster comes in. It doesn't happen way if she does shoot somebody. I know there's a couple cops that she does kill, and but I don't think it happens the exact same way it happens in the movie.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. So your favorite character is Buster the sheriff. So who's your least favorite character?
I mean, I guess it'd have to be Annie, but I still like her, like as a character. I don't like her, you know, as a human being, but as a character in a movie, like I like her because she's, you know, she's kind of funny. She's definitely crazy, you know, kind of has big mood swings. So I guess I dislike her, you know, the most, but I still like her as a character, just not as a, you know, I wouldn't want to hang out with her.
Yeah. So this portion of the podcast is also always a little tough to answer when you really like a movie, because when you really like it, you don't really dislike anybody, you know? And so when I was writing my favorite, my least favorite, you're going to get a kick out of my least favorite character in the movie. So my favorite is actually Paul Sheldon. I could definitely see why Buster would be like my next pick. He's hilarious. And I love that moment when he's driving with his wife in the car, and she's like, she tries to touch him or whatever. And he's like, God dang it, woman. He's like, when you're with me, you're the deputy. You're not my wife. And she's like, well, your deputy's going to wants to get a little frisky with the sheriff or something. Like, I forgot what she says exactly. Yeah. That moment is so funny, dude. I love their banter back and forth, this old husband and wife. But yeah, dude, he's really funny, Buster. But Paul is definitely my favorite because you're right. We don't know if he's a jerk. And honestly, he kind of comes off as an arrogant writer. Like, oh, I don't want to write Misery Chastain anymore. Like, I want to go do something else. And it's like, but Paul, you know that people love your Misery series. He's like, but I don't love it. And it's like, it's not all about you, Paul. Like, I understand happiness, but you have to still continue to do what the people like. Otherwise, you're not doing a good service to them, in my opinion. But so he kind of seems like a dick in that way. But I love his approach to keeping himself safe when he's with Annie and she's starting to flip out. She's like, you're a dirty birdie and you're crazy. And, you know, she starts going off that first time. Dude, even as an audience member, you're just like, whoa, oh my God, this chick is crazy. And then you can see it in his face that he feels the same way the audience feels. Like, this chick is freaky. And I love like moments where she's like, you probably don't like me, do you? And stuff. And he's like, no, Annie, I love you, you know, like, and he's just totally just going with the flow. And I like that they wrote his character to do that, to adapt to that situation instead of still being like, you're a freaking psychopath, leave me alone. You know, like, I like that he's lying and trying to like please the mind of a killer, you know. And dude, I love his shenanigans he gets into when he's like supposed to be taking the pills that she gives him, but he stuffs them into his mattress, and then he tries to poison her pretty much, or overdose her or something. I just love his moves. I love his acting. I love his character. I love James Caan. I like him a lot. He was one of the sisters in Shawshank, right?
No.
Not him?
No, I know who you're talking about, but it's not him. No, it looks like him.
I get those two guys confused. But I do know that he was the dad in the movie Elf with Will Ferrell that came out a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I really liked him in that role as well. Let's see where we at. So Paul's my favorite. I love his character. I love his acting, everything about him. I really dig him. Also, my least favorite character is, since I couldn't really think of anybody, I just wrote the hotel worker, like the guy who works in the lobby of the hotel. Like, he just pretty much, she explains to Buster, he goes, yeah, Paul Sheldon stays here, and he always orders the same thing, and when he's writing a book or whatever, and he leaves at the same time. You know, like, I seriously have no problem with the guy. It's just, out of all the characters I can think about in this movie, he just is the least significant. So he's my least favorite because, like you were saying, Annie, you don't want to like her because she's the antagonist of the movie, but you still like
Yeah.
her as a character because of everything you had listed earlier about her.
Yeah.
Okay, so this movie is like a really high scored movie in our opinions, but do you have any gripes at all about this movie?
I mean, maybe towards the end, the way the whole fight with Annie, maybe it's a little silly, comes across a little silly at times, but I'm fine with it. But if I did have to pick, anything that maybe didn't come across as genuine, maybe some of that, but I still like it though. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I don't really have too many gripes about it.
Yeah, I don't either, to be honest. Like, I really was thinking, what didn't I like about it? And
Yeah,
I can't come up with a thing, dude. Like, I really can't. Well,
yeah,
okay, there's one thing. There's one thing I guess that I didn't really care for because I wish they would explain this a little more. So he ends up getting a bobby pin that fell on the ground, and he pickpockets his way out of his room pretty much. And when Annie's gone to get him paper, he's kind of like inching around the house looking at things, and he goes to make a phone call, and he finds her telephone. And he goes to pick it up, and there's no dial tone. And he realizes that the phone is just like a decoy phone. It's not even plugged in, and that's supposed to be like a big moment, like, oh my god, like her phone doesn't work, so he can't call anybody. But it kind of made me think, okay, so she never expected him to get out of the room, so does she just always have a phone that doesn't work right there? Like, in like, what's the point of having a phone that doesn't work? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I
Like,
don't know.
why just not have a phone at all, right? Like if it doesn't work, just don't have a phone, and you won't find a phone working or not. So why even have it? Yeah,
Yeah, because you're trying to do is confuse somebody who's trying to use that phone. But if you're never expecting anybody and the only person you have for company is laying in a bed with broken legs, then like what's the point? I don't That's probably like one of the dumbest things in the movie, which is, it's really not that big a deal. You understand why they put it in there, but still it's like, why? But
yeah,
I heard a gripe from somebody else from a different podcast that I listened to one time. They had a problem with the fact that Annie kept basically a binder full of news clippings about basically like babies getting killed and stuff at hospitals. And she's a nurse, and you find out that she's a baby killer pretty much. And
yeah.
that's like a big twist that I loved about the movie. She's not just
Mhm.
some weird psychopath fan of his. She's also a legit murderer. And they kind of felt like, isn't her being just kind of like a psychopath fan enough? Did they have to throw in the fact that she's a baby killer? And not only that, but did they have to have news clippings of the murders? Like, why in movies do the killers always have news clippings? They had a problem with that. I still didn't have a problem with that, but I'm asking you, like, did you have a problem with any of that side, motive, or not motive, but that side thing about her being a baby killer? Did you have a problem with any of that?
No, definitely not with the learning about her past. I thought that was actually really interesting, finding out that she was a nurse, so that's why she has all these nursing stuff to help Paul out. So you go, okay, that's why she has all that. And you learn about the babies, and you're like, oh my god, she's really crazy, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess the binder full of clippings, you could just chalk it up to she's crazy. I don't know, maybe she just likes to do that for some reason. I don't know.
I think the reason why one would collect binding clippings is because if you're going to be some sort of murderer or a psychopath, like, you're probably also a narcissist, which is
Yeah,
why you're so enthralled with yourself and your desires. And so
yeah,
I feel like she probably was collecting those to kind of like remember, and like, look at what I did type of thing. And
yeah,
I
like
think that's
little,
also, yeah, like momentums or something.
yeah,
And that's why in movies, killers always go to the crime scene. Like, they're always standing amongst the viewers, like looking at the dead body or something, because they're like, this is my work, and they're proud of themselves. So I kind of chalked it up to that. So I had no problem
sure.
with that at all. But somebody else did, so I was trying to bring that up to see what you thought about it. But
Oh, yeah.
so as far as gripes, like, pretty much that's it, dude. Like, and that's stuff that we really had to like pick out, and really like think, like,
Yeah,
did I really have a problem with this? And like, no, of course you didn't.
yeah.
So now let's
Hmm.
start talking about some stuff that we liked, some highlights of this movie. I want to start with I want to start with the effects, the makeup. So Paul Sheldon is driving on the side of a cliff, basically during a snowstorm, like whiteout snowstorms, and he ends up going off the road, crashing. Annie Wilkes follows him, finds him, saves him, and she reveals that he can't get out of bed because his legs are broken. And when she pulls back that cover, you see like the splints that she made for his legs, and then
Mhm.
the makeup. Dude, what did you think about that makeup?
Oh yeah, that's pretty. I mean, it was pretty good, man. Like his legs looked like in such pain. Like they really needed to, make him look as good as they did to sell how much pain he was in, how immobile he was going to be for quite some time. But yeah, I'm just that reveal of when they show how banged up his legs are is like, oh my goodness.
I know it
Yeah.
was a little rough to watch, and it's funny because when this movie was made in the '90s, that's when VHS tapes were still like the source of movie watching, and
Oh, yeah.
nobody knew all these years later we're gonna have 4K Blu-rays and stuff like that and digital,
Oh,
which
sure,
is gonna
sure,
make
sure.
everything look super good and crisp. And some older
Mhm.
movies suffer from that quality of movie because you can see like things that were supposed to be like prosthetic makeup and stuff. It used to look good
Yeah,
in the '90s. Now you can see the actual lines of the makeup and stuff because
yeah.
we have better
Hmm.
cameras. That's one thing that I was impressed about when the reveal about how broken his legs were is that it didn't look old. It didn't look like outdated makeup. It looked current and it still looked great. And
Oh yeah.
that's one thing I'm going to praise this movie about. Like all the effects look fantastic still.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no complaints there. Like everything everything looks good. That's it's supposed to be, horrific. It looks pretty horrific. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about some performances, dude. Let's talk about the acting. I want to talk about specifically Kathy Bates because from what I can remember, what I heard recently, and I might be wrong. So if I'm wrong, please don't kill me for this. But I heard that Kathy Bates was a Broadway performer before she got this role, and this was like kind of one of her first like acting gigs. Is that true? Do you know about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about it's probably true about the Broadway performing, but I know it's not her first movie I know, but it's one of her first movies. I know it's the one that like made her a star, like the one that after
Oh
this
yeah,
everybody talked about her talked about her after this movie for sure. So,
yeah, and totally well deserved, dude. Like her performance in this movie is so good, dude. And honestly,
mhm.
one thing this has nothing to do with performance or anything, and has everything to do with when I was watching this. I was like, she's actually like really pretty. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she's a really pretty lady back then, dude. Like I mean, she's
Oh
older
yeah.
now, but yeah, that's one thing I didn't remember the first time I saw Misery, and then rewatching it again a few months ago, I was like, she's she's really pretty. I thought,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
But her acting, dude, like, what did you think about her acting? Was it like super convincing? Was it corny? Was it like okay? What did you think about Annie Wilkes?
I mean, I was convincing for sure. I mean, it's maybe a little over the top at times, but I think in a good way. I don't think it's like a bad over the top. Sometimes you see a performance where you go, okay, you're just doing way too much. I think she kind of rides that line of where it's a little too much, but it's like almost right there, and just how unstable she is. I think it really works. Going from super crazy to kind of really nice and loving to a little wacky and then back again. So yeah, I
Oh
thought I
yeah,
thought she was really really great.
dude. As we're talking about this, and I'm thinking about Annie and her acting and certain moments that stuck out. There's two specifically that stick out to me. Actually, three now that I'm thinking about it. One is the moment when Paul wakes up and her pig is in the room and she like comes back into the
Uh,
room chasing after it and she's like this little farm girl that's like snorting like a pig. Do you remember that? She's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, dude, like that made me laugh and chuckle a little bit, but also at the same time it's like, oh, this I already know this character is so disturbed that her doing that is like a oh my god, she's so weird type of feeling. And
Yeah,
another moment is when she's flipping out on Paul and she's like it's a real extreme close up on her face and she's flipping out because she just read I think the new Misery or something and she's like I can't believe you're writing her to use such profane language and to curse and stuff. And she's like, people don't say F in this and F in that and stuff. And she like flips out, dude. That whole scene where she's just like flipping out on Paul, like, dude, that was like a quality acting. Like, what did you think about that
Oh
scene?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That whole moment is pretty intense. Like the camera's just like getting closer to her, and she's just like, just yeah. She really sells that character. Especially in that scene. That's kind of like one of the first times where you really get uneasy with her. You're like, oh my goodness, like okay,
Like, okay, calm down.
yeah, just
Um,
relax.
and then the last final like scene that I can think of, like that's just popping out and screaming at me, is when it's raining and she comes into the room and she looks over at Paul, and she's not in a happy mood like she usually is. She's also not in a crazy mood like she sometimes gets. She's in this very depressed, look at the rain, I'm all woe is me sad thing. And she kind of like looks at him and she's just like, I know that you don't love me. Like, I know that you don't like me and stuff. And like, she's just depressed. And I think she like gives off some sort of like suicidal vibe or some sort of like killing vibe. I don't know. I can't remember specifically, but she just has this like really eerie depression to her where she is so off the chain with emotions that you don't know what she's going to do next because of it. Like, is she going to like shoot Paul and then shoot herself side by side? Like
Yeah,
that's the kind of vibe she's giving off because she's so weird, man. Uh,
yeah.
but that just that moment of dull sadness, like I don't know, it's spitting out to me. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, that scene. That's definitely another standout scene with her because, like you said, it's a different kind of emotion coming from her. Because before we said we saw her, very over the top, angry, and then very nice and caring, and now we got her, doing something else, and just like, whoa, okay, like what else is she capable of? Like, what other kind of emotions are we going to see from her? Is this it? Is there more coming? But yeah, that scene's really good because you almost kind of feel for her too because she's just so sad and like looking out the window, and you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And with her, it's kind of like it's hard to know how to act with her because she is so unstable emotionally that on one end you want to feel sympathy and like tell her that like you care and everything's going to be okay and stuff. But at the same time, she broke your feet. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you can't just be like, oh, she's okay. Like I don't know if you listened to my recent podcast. I reviewed the movie Creep back from 2014, I
Oh
think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And there's a moment towards the end when the main character is sending the other main character a video saying like, I'm just a sad guy, I'm lonely. And
Oh,
the
yeah,
the guy watching the video has a moment where he's like, look how sad this guy is, like let me give into his sadness. But with that character and also even Annie Wilkes's character, it's like you can't just rely on their emotion that they're projecting at that moment because you have
yeah.
no idea what else could be coming right after that. And that's one thing that I loved. It's like every time Annie leaves, it's like scene ends, and next time she comes back in, you don't know which Annie you're gonna get. And that's part of like every time you see her, you're like you get uneasy because you're like, okay, is she gonna flip out? Is she gonna be super happy and loving? Or is she gonna be sad? Oh God, dude, her character is so complex, and I love it so very much.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
one thing I wanted to talk about because this is one thing that I've always kind of questioned. I'm not sure if this was just luck that this happened or if this was some sort of like planned out type of thing. But there's a moment where James Caan has to rewrite his whole book because Annie basically was like, I'm not okay with this. You need to burn it pretty much. And so like he has to start over at some point. And so he needs paper. So he sends her off to the store to go get specific paper for him to write on his typewriter. And that's when she's gone and he finds out she's a killer and finds out all these crazy things about her. And he gets back to his room. And when she comes back, she has the paper and he says, oh, that's the wrong kind of paper. And she's like, what do you mean it's the wrong kind of paper? And he's like, see, this paper smudges. And he shows her, he types something out. And then I think he actually types out the word smudge. And then he kind of presses on it and it does smudge on the paper. So she sends him back, or he sends her back out to go get the right kind of paper. So I've never fully been able to understand, is this a moment of luck that he lucked out and she bought the wrong kind of paper, or would that paper have sufficed, but he just needed a reason to send her back out, so he made up the smudge story? Like, what did you
Mm.
take out of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I never really thought about it, but I'm trying to remember what happened in the book because I know the same thing happened in the book where he sent her back out. But I don't remember if it was, if he was just kind of faking it just to get her out, or if it was real, like a real thing. But from what I remember, I think it was, you know, the wrong kind of paper that he actually needed a different kind. But I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Dude, even coming off of that scene, you have a follow-up scene with Buster the cop, the sheriff, and he ends up going to that shop where Annie was buying all that paper from, and he's talking to the guy behind the counter, and he's like, was there anything that's been sold, blah blah blah, and he's like, yeah, Annie she bought all this paper and stuff, and he was like, really? And he goes,
Yeah,
yeah. I thought it was kind of weird. He goes, yep. And he just like leaves. Dude, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Dude, that part made me laugh out
Yeah.
loud so loud when he was just like, yeah, that is weird, isn't it? And then he like leaves. And dude, his character was so good. And like to see him get blasted through the chest, first of all, that was a great jump scare. It was so unexpected. And then
Oh, yeah.
you felt so much for Buster. You didn't want him to die, especially like that was the moment when he finally sees Paul and he gets that confirmation that like Annie kidnapped him, and then she blasts him away. Dude, what did you think of that whole moment?
Yeah, it was because when I'd seen the movie, then I read the book, and I watched the movie again, and like I said, that part's not in the book with Buster. So when that part came, the second time I watched it, I was definitely taken aback even more so. I was like, oh, that's right, he gets killed. And yeah, you definitely feel bad because this whole time he's tracking him down, and like, almost immediately, the moment he gets there, he gets killed. You're like, oh, jeez, man. I mean, sure, you got to see Paul and everything, but all that for you know to get blasted away. Like,
Oh, I
damn.
know. To go out like that, dude. Oh God. And I remember the scene when he goes to go visit her house, and she's like, "Oh my God, she's so smart though." Like that moment when they're walking through the house, and he goes into Paul's room, and he's like, "You got a typewriter in there and stuff, right?" And she was like, "Yeah, well, when I found out he was missing, I kind of just wanted to like carry on his basically like his legacy, and I felt like that's what he would want me to do, is to like continue on for him." So, dude, oh my God, like I had forgotten that she came up with that reason since the first
Yeah,
time I'd seen that movie. And when she comes up, I was like, dude, that is brilliant. Like, there's so many times in movies when somebody is like, whoa, what is that? And then they come up with some reason, and you're like, yeah, right, dude. Nobody would fall for that in real life. That's a movie thing. This actually was
yeah,
one of those excuses that made complete sense, and the way she acted sold it, and the way the dialogue was written for her, just it's brilliant, dude. Like it's so convincing. And honestly, if I was the cop, even though I still would have that weird feeling in my gut, that definitely is a good reason. That checks out. Uh,
yeah,
what did you think about all that?
yeah. Like you said, like it's very convincing, the scene, because a lot of times in movies things aren't convincing, and you're just like, eye roll. But yeah, it's when they do those types of things in movies where you actually believe the reason, the character, the actor is able to sell it through their performance. Um, yeah, it's definitely, it's much appreciated when you watch a movie that has, really good dialogue and characters that are able to, be smart and come up with clever things that would actually work in the real world, as opposed to just some sort of movie logic that doesn't always add up.
Yeah, exactly. And then even when he's strolling through the house, she keeps offering him. I forgot the exact liquid she's offering, but some sort of like tea or some sort of coffee or something like that. She's offering it to him or something to eat, and he's just like, I'm okay, thank you. Like I don't want anything." Do you think that she was just trying to be polite, or do you think that she had like poisoned or whatever, or something that she was going to give him and try to knock him out or something like that?
Oh, I guess I never thought of that. I just assumed she was just trying to be nice to, get him out of the room, kind of like distract him enough to where he's not snooping around so much. But yeah, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't put it past her to try and kill him, eventually. But she's going to give him something to drink. Hey, yeah, that'd be a smart way to do it.
Yeah. And then he's leaving, and he basically starts walking away, and that's when like he hears Paul, and that's when he turns around and runs inside and finds Paul and gets shot and killed, and that's the end of him,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because he's so cool. But dude, I want to talk about that moment when Paul basically takes that envelope or whatever full of the drugs that she's been giving him, and he pours it into her, what is it, wine, I believe. And
Yeah.
dude, you're like, he's about to get her, finally, and then she accidentally knocks over the glass of wine. Dude, that emotion on Paul Sheldon's face, like that was my one shot, and I don't know what I'm gonna do at this point now. I was so convinced that that's exactly how he felt, like based off his emotions and his acting. What did you think about that? Like when you saw that, were you just like, oh my God? Or like, what did you think?
Oh yeah, dude, that's a really good scene because you see him, the whole process of it. It takes a while. He has to get each pill, has to break them apart. It's not something he could do quickly. It took a while to get it done, and then to have it almost immediately just ruined, like right there in front of him. Like you said, his face really really sells that scene. And also that scene is not in the book at all. So that's another thing I really liked about the movie was this scene because I thought that was really cool that they you tried to poison her and didn't work out. So
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a good addition then. Who was it?
yeah,
Robert? No, yeah, Rob Reiner. That's a good choice that he put into that movie. I like that.
yeah.
Um, I guess the main final thing that we're gonna have to talk about is he starts to get better, Paul Sheldon, and he's able to leave soon. And Annie is gonna make sure that he doesn't leave though, and so
Right.
she puts a 2x4 between his legs, more so on his ankles. She takes a sledgehammer and she hits his feet from the side and completely shatters his ankles. Oh my God, dude. Just trying to like say that, like I'm feeling my feet get all like tensed up, dude. Like my toes curled up. I'm like, oh my God, dude. And on top of that, like it shows it.
Yeah.
Like it's not
Like,
something that is implied. It literally shows a twist, just like in a 90-degree right angle.
yeah.
Oh my God, bro. What did you think of that scene?
Oh yeah. I mean it's definitely like the most famous part of the movie. I would say like whenever you see clips of the movie, they always show that part, and just the music that's playing too. That I forget what it's that it's that slow piano music that's famous. I forget what it's called, but that's playing in the background, and she's just kind of doing it all slow. And Paul eventually kind of realizes like what's happening. He's like, hey, what are we doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh?
Oh,
She's like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry. I love you. And then you're just like, jeez. And then she swings it, and like you said, you
oh.
see the way it just goes like that. You're like, oh. And then to the other one, like, bam, oh, yeah. Just the visual of it is just, it's so,
It's squeamish.
oh yeah, yeah, sticks with you.
Even when she's telling him like I love you and this and that and stuff, he like his look, dude, when he's looking at her and he's sweating and he's just like, Annie, I
Yeah,
beg you, like don't do what you're about to do, please. Like I'm begging you. Like, oh my God, dude, just that whole moment. You want to talk about a tense scene? That is a tense scene, dude. Like 'cause even
oh
as the
yeah,
audience, you're like, please don't do what we think you're gonna do. Please don't do it. But she does
yeah.
it. And not only does she do it to one foot, she does it to both feet. Oh my God. And then another scene that was just hard to get through to watch because of the acting is she brings in a barbecue into his room, and she opens it up and she has his script or his book right there on top of it, and she's like, to make sure that this book doesn't like ever see the light of day, like you were going to burn it. And he pours the lighter fluid on it, or she does, or somebody does it, and then she makes him throw a match on top of that barbecue and burn his book. Dude, if you have ever put any time into anything that you care about, you know that it's very hurtful to lose that thing. So like, remember when you'd be in high school or college or whatever, and you'd be writing a paper and you didn't hit save and your computer
Oh,
crashed? and you had to start over or just whatever it is. Just that feeling of just like, oh my God, like all that work that I just put into something is gone. I have nothing, no backup file, no anything. Even though Paul lies to her and says, I have, I already gave a copy to my agent or whatever. Like, there's more copies out there. She calls his bluff and she's like, well, then just burn it anyways. And so, but he was lying, and he ends up burning that script, or I keep calling it script, burning that book. And just that look, he just kind of like lays back and just looks at the ceiling like, I can't believe what just happened. Dude, like, could you imagine being in Paul's shoes in that moment?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially like you're saying with like homework or something, that is probably only maybe a couple days worth of work, or maybe a week's worth of work that you would lose if you didn't hit save. But like this could have been 6 months, a year, who knows how long he was working on it, and just to be gone like that, like, and the only copy, and there's no file anywhere, it's all typed out and that's it, like it's just gone. So yeah, that I can imagine his feeling there, because I mean you see it on his face, but yeah, you could imagine losing something that you worked on for that long, that quickly. Horrible.
Yeah, and no matter how many drafts he has written up or how many anything's, like, he can't mirror image it. He can't like copy paste it. He can't just bring it back, and even if he tries to rewrite it almost the same, it's never going to be the same. So it's probably not going to be as good as either. I remember it reminds me of this time where I was doing some commission artwork for somebody, and I was drawing the picture and it was coming out so clean, so good. And then I had to leave. I didn't finish it, but I had to leave somewhere and I didn't save it. And when I was gone, my computer automatically updated while I was gone. Like, I guess it was time for an update. And when I came back, the whole computer like was updated and every program got shut down, and I didn't save that picture. And I tried to bring it back, but I couldn't. And I basically had to like restart that picture over again. And even though I'm still satisfied with how it turned out, there were still like aspects of the first image that I was drawing that I just couldn't replicate. I couldn't make it look as good. And it was like, and I had probably put in about a good 45 minutes worth of work into that picture at that point. So that was rough to get to lose. So I can't imagine something like you said could have taken 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, that must have been horrible.
Yeah.
What are some other scenes that we didn't talk about that you like specifically?
I mean, we briefly talked about it where he's, the first time he gets out of bed and he's like, pulling himself through the house, trying to get to the phone. Because he knocks over that little penguin statue or something? Isn't that what he does?
I think
and then she notices
it's turned around backwards. He knocks it and then he puts it back, but it's facing the wrong way.
That's right. Yeah. And then she notices, once she gets home and everything. And then the whole scene with the knife too, where he gets the knife and he has it in bed, and then she's like, "Oh, you looking for this?" And
oh yeah.
Like, damn, man. You're like, "Oh, he's got this knife. All right, what are you gonna do now, Paul?" And then she's like, No, I know what you're doing, man. You're not gonna use this on me, pal.
Well, because the whole reason that entire sequence is so intense is because he leaves his room when she's gone, and he's dude, that freaking scared me. My wife came up behind me. I thought she was sleeping, so I don't know. I guess I'm in my misery intense moment, so freaking out.
Yeah.
But it's all good. So that moment is just, the sequence is so intense because he's not supposed to be out of his room, and like you can see her coming back, and so he's trying to like get his way back to that room and relock the door and everything, and all of that was so intense, only to have her come in just a scene later and be like, "I know you've been out of this room, like I know you've left this room." And it was like all of that work to not get caught was for nothing because he got caught anyways. And that's when she also finds the knife. And then it's like, after that happens, you can't really lie to her anymore and be like, "Annie, I care about you," like, because she knows the truth now. Like, you're trying to escape and you have a knife and crap, and like, it just can't go back to the way it was. And so like now all the bets are off. She's not just going to be that lady that's there and willing to do anything for you. She knows that you're basically trying to kill her, or something. You don't want to be there, like as you claimed.
Yeah.
There's another thing that happens. It's just a small little thing in the movie, but it was impactful to me. And she tells Paul when he first wakes up, she goes, "Oh, all the phone lines are down. I can't call any hospitals. I can't call anybody to come get you or to know you that you're even okay. We're gonna have to wait until some things get cleared up to call the lines." And then a day or so goes by, and she comes back to the house, and she's talking to him, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I just got off the phone with somebody, letting them know you're okay," or something like that. And he goes, "Oh, so the phones are working." And you can tell, like, in that moment, she's like, "Oh crap. Um, well, the phones aren't working. Only this specific phone worked for this," or something like that. And she gives some sort of like reason. I can't remember the exact reason, but she gives some sort of reason why he can't go into town and like make a phone call or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just felt like little moments like that were just so genius of the writers and the director to put in, because, you know, as an audience member, you have certain questions like, well, why can't he go use this phone, or why can't he do this? And when they address it by saying like, "Oh, if you're thinking this way, I'm going to give you the reason why you shouldn't think this way, and it's going to make complete sense." Again, like talking about the typewriter, why she would have a typewriter. Most movies would have some stupid bullcrap reason, but this one, it actually had like legit thought out explanations for why all these events would happen. And that's just one of the reasons why I love this movie, dude. Is I feel like it's very well thought out. I mean, they probably had great source material to work off of, but still, like, converting it from a book to a movie is not an easy thing to do, and they did it so flawlessly. I feel. What do you think, man? Like overall thoughts about this movie? Like, that's a 9 out of 10, but we're pretty much ending this podcast soon, so I want to know like your final thoughts about this movie, I guess.
Yeah, like I think it's just a really well-made thriller with really good performances from, basically just three people, more or less. And yeah, like I said, it's a really good adaptation, because a lot of Stephen King adaptations, they either just do it wrong or they, I don't know, just mess it up somehow. But this one, they took, everything that was, everything really good from the book, but also, kind of streamlined it and changed, like, the changes I talked about, a few changes that I thought worked better for a movie versus a book. Like the book, it worked fine for the book, but having the Buster, on the trail, tracking him down, I think that really works better for a movie. So, that way you have a little break from the tension to kind of realize that, Annie's being closed in on. Eventually she's going to be found out. So you have that tension also coming from Buster closing in on her, but then also with Paul and Annie, doing their thing in the house. But like, yeah, it's just a really good movie, start to finish.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's not one moment to me that feels boring, especially at the end. Like, there's actually a moment when they're like fist fighting each other. Paul and Kathy Bates' character, they're like fist fighting, and doesn't he end up taking the typewriter, and he like smashes it over her face, right? And I can't remember, like, it's been a minute, but like, did she die at the end, or no? She like lived, didn't she?
No, I'm pretty sure she's dead. Yeah,
No,
she
yeah.
was like,
But he's having visions or nightmares of her or something.
well, he's at the very end, he's like in a restaurant, and then like a lady walks up, like the waitress, I think, and he looks up, and it's her at first, because she says something like, I'm your number one fan." And he looks up, and he sees Annie, but then it's, then you see it's actually another waitress.
Okay.
So yeah, it was just kind of like a hallucination real quick. But I'm pretty sure she's dead, because he like stuffs the paper, like the burnt paper, in her mouth and everything, and like when he smashes her head, like, and her eyes look like they're kind of like bulging out or something. Like she's just laying there, like. So
Yeah.
pretty sure she's dead.
Yeah. I like I said, I recently watched it, but like that fight scene, I was starting to fall asleep. And then by the end of it, I was like in and out, and I just saw like a spurt of him having like a glimpse of her. That's why I'm like, I can't remember. I should have gone back and rewatched it. Like, I'm not being a very good podcast host by not knowing my material. But yeah, dude, I freaking love this movie. And I guess my final thoughts about this is that it's still a freaking great movie for the times, for as old as it is. And this is one of those movies that will always be remembered specifically because of Kathy Bates, because of her. If she wasn't in this movie wouldn't be the movie it was. You might have some similar acting if you had somebody else, but you're not going to get that performance that only Kathy Bates can give. And dude, I absolutely love this movie. 10 out of 10 for me, for sure. Yeah, that's going to wrap it up pretty much. So is there any last things you want to say about this movie, Mike?
No, I mean, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's you won't be disappointed for sure. You may not love it as much as we do, but you'll definitely enjoy it. There's no way you're gonna, when it's over, think it was a bad movie or not worth your time. So definitely check it out.
Like, in no way is this a scary movie, though. There are intense there are intense moments, but this is a thriller. This is not a horror, as people claim it is sometimes, but still, ultimately, it's really good. It's a good watch. And it's got very high rewatchability. I can watch this movie all the time. I love it. Yes, that's going to wrap it up. So if you guys haven't subscribed, go down below, subscribe. I'd love to know what you guys thought about this movie. I'm pretty sure out of 10 comments, only one might be kind of bad, but I guarantee at least 9 of them are going to rave about this movie. This movie's freaking sick. I love it. So, Mike, I want to thank you for being on, my man. I appreciate it. I had a good time podcasting with you, and I'll definitely have you on again. If you guys go back, it's probably about a year ago by now, maybe. If you go back to episode, I think 9, Mike was on that one. It's the Bird Box review, and he had a lot of good things to say about that movie too. So thanks for being on, dude, and I'll talk to you later, all right?
Yep. All right, man.